Hey, fellow patriots, I'm Bree.
And I'm Blaze. Some call me Pa. It has been said that we have 4 boxes to keep ourselves free. These are the soapbox, the ballot box, the jury box, and the ammo box.
And we are the 4th box. We are here to arm you with enough information, resources, and skills to take back your freedom, increase your self-sufficiency, and inspire you to join in the fight against tyranny.
Thomas Jefferson said, "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty." Thank you for joining us and for joining in this fight.
Welcome back to the 4th box. Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another week at the 4th Box podcast. I know last week we filled you in a little bit on what we had going on. It was a very, very busy week for us. We had a lot of exciting stuff going on in the family, including, which I realized we didn't mention last week, so I might have to sneak in a preemptive cheers before I pass over the mic. My co-host, my dad's birthday was Wednesday, the day before the podcast aired, and I didn't even think to toast you on that one. So before I hand you the mic, cheers to you, Dad. I know there was a lot going on. We didn't squeeze that toast in. So happy to do it now. Happy belated birthday now. Cheers. Cheers all around.
Cheers to Blaze. Happy birthday. Hey, are you going to tell us how old you are?
I haven't caught you yet, Sheriff. How's that? Well, thanks, Bree, for bringing that up with all the other things that were going on. I really thought that was kind of inconsequential, but greetings, 4th Box listeners. We are certainly happy to be back with you tonight. We got one of our favorite guests along tonight, and we're going to get to that as quick as we can so we have the most time available to discuss his new works. In the interim, I'm raising my glass to Brent, our son Brent, who the sheriff also knows, became wed over the weekend. They are now back in Alaska where they reside, so I'm cheering them. I'm cheering my other daughter, who is not on the show, who is about a month away from my first grandbaby. Very much looking forward to that. And also, I am toasting that was celebrated over the last week, Brianna's engagement. So we've had a tremendous family week. Going to be hard to top. Yep. So cheers to everybody out there and that's joining in celebrating the great family week that we had.
Yes.
My
cheers.
Goodness. What's the Dornish family coming to? My goodness.
How about it?
Cheers.
Yeah, thank you. So the quote tonight, I'm hoping is going to be relevant, at least for one of the sheriff's earlier works, and it goes like this: the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. It divides power among sovereigns and among branches of government, precisely so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day. Yep.
He knows that one well.
You know, Blaze, that is a great quote, and every American should memorize that quote.
I agree. I truly do. So we are sharing that from the sheriff's book called County Sheriff America's Last Hope. You can find it there. I think it's also in the little pocket book you have on the state sovereignty. And I don't want to spend too much time on that, but it was a great quote and hope it falls on some of the topics we discussed tonight. Real quickly, we do a moment in history as we're leading up to the 4th of July and the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So on June 15th, 1776, the Assembly of the Lower Counties of Pennsylvania, my home state, declared itself independent of British and Pennsylvania authority, thereby creating the state of Delaware. So that happened this month, 250 years ago. Prior to that, Pennsylvania had upper counties and lower counties, both governed by one governor, and that was changed this week in 1776, 250 years ago. So there is our moment in history. And that is as quick as I can get through what I had to get back to the sheriff and talking about his new work.
Awesome. Yeah, great. So I'm not going to do a huge introduction because we have had Sheriff Richard Mack on with us before. So he is a former sheriff out in Arizona, and he also founded the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, which he has spoke about on this podcast before. So I will just link that show for anyone who hasn't seen that episode, doesn't know who Sheriff Richard Mack is. You can refer to that episode. We won't go through all of that tonight. We want to really spend our time on his very recently released book, The Democrat Murder of America, Demagoguery in the First Degree, which I really enjoyed that subtitle there. So we're just going to dive right into that. Sheriff, I'm just going to pass it right over to you and allow you to kind of expand on what inspired you and Dan Perkins to work on this book together and everything that you hope that comes out of the book.
Well, yeah, thank you again, Blaze and Bree. Thank you so much for having me. I know we're all friends, and especially you and me, Blaze. We go way back, and I mean, we go way back. And I really love your family. I love your zeal for freedom and for your love for America, your love for American history, and we have a lot in common. And I want to do a shout out to my wife. She's hung with me this entire journey, and it's been a real roller coaster ride. And my wife and I have commented numerous times how we prefer the roller coaster to the merry-go-round.
I like that.
Our life and our marriage really has been one big roller coaster ride. And she still rides them. I don't, because I like roller coasters, but the ones that go really twirly and all crazy, they get me sick now. And sometimes the grandkids will still talk me into doing one, but it's been about 2 years since I've allowed them to do that to me too. But I'll tell you what, it's been an amazing journey with my wife, and we just celebrated our 51st wedding anniversary, May 20th, last month. And I will have my 73rd and a half birthday. My birthday is December 27th. So June 27th, I'll be 73 and a half. And I say that date because that June 27, 1997 was actually the day that I won the case at the United States Supreme Court.
Yep.
And as you know, Blaze and Bree, I was the one that started that whole thing. And it was a miracle from the get-go. And I didn't do the miracle. I'm not going to take credit for any miracles, folks. I'm not the author of miracles. I'm the author partly of this book. But this book is a miracle also, and I can't take full credit for that as well. God has blessed us, and he has put his hand on us numerous times and blessed us with miracles. This book is one, and when I came forward, the only sheriff in the entire country for about 6 weeks, all by myself in the entire United States of America, I was suing the Clintons to stop the overreach and the abuse and the oppression of the Brady Bill, the gun control of the Brady Bill. And the sheriffs of this country were supposedly forced by the federal government to enforce the Brady Bill for them for free. And if we didn't do it, they were going to put us in jail for a year. They threatened us with arrest and a fine of $10,000. And I thought every sheriff in the country is going to say no, that we're all going to stand together and tell the federal government to take a hike. And one did. One. Me.
Yeah.
And then, thank God, Sheriff Prince joined the fight, joined the lawsuit. He never called me. He just did it. And we are best friends now. And on June 27th, I will call him and say, hey, it's our anniversary, Sheriff.
Yeah.
This is the day we won. And this is the day America won. And the quote that just you gave a little while ago, Blaze, was from this little booklet, and also the County Sheriff America's Last Hope, because I took it out of this and put it in there. But this is a decision that every American should have in their pocket, in their home, in their car, and be ready to pass these around to public officials who don't know what the hell they're doing. They need to see this, because you have to admit this, Bree and Blaze, that most public officials do not know anything about the proper role of government or what the hell they're doing in their office.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that case would really help them. The only time in history where sheriffs sued the federal government and won a case at the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, the miracle that I hold in my hand here, the Democrat murder of America. Why on earth would anybody entitle a book, The Democrat Murder of America? And where in the heck did I come up with my co-author, Daniel Perkins? Because 9 months ago, I didn't even know who he was. I never met him, never had heard of him. And for some reason, he and I ended up on a podcast together. And I still didn't know who he was. And somebody said, oh, this is Daniel Perkins. He's quite the author. He writes fairy tale books for children. So well, I don't have anything in common with him, you know, and except I found out that he's quite the patriot and he loves America and loves his family. And he took it upon himself to ask me a few questions on the podcast. And he said, man, your story is really compelling. Did you ever write any books? And I said, yeah, 7 or 8. And he goes, if I send you a podcast, if I send you a link right after this show, do you have a few minutes you can talk to me and show me your books? I said, yeah, I'm free. Let's do it. So right after that podcast, he emails me the link. I get on with him on a Zoom, and he said, okay, show me some of your books. So I put some of the books up here. Oh, hey, there's this one. And hey, there's this one. Look at me. Now, how's that? How's that for a good-looking cop?
Yeah, you were just a touch younger there.
Yeah, like 40 years ago. So I showed him, the Are You a David? And you love this title too. I know, Blaze, you and I have talked about this before. The Magic of Gun Control. Wow. Now there's another title. I'm great on titles, huh? And so anyway, you know what he says right then? I mean, we were on together about 10 minutes. He goes, I want to write a book with you. I said, okay. Well, I haven't written one for about 12 years. And Sam Bushman has been after me to put the proper role of law enforcement and the County Sheriff America's Last Hope, put them together and rewrite all that. And I just never got around to it. It just didn't really hit me. Okay. And so he says, let's write a book. And I said, what for? What about it? And he goes, I think we need to expose what's going on and how the Democrats are destroying our country and how all the corruption and subterfuge of the Democrat Party, we need to expose that this year so that we can have an impact on the outcome of the midterm election. And I said, okay, I'd like to do that. I'm sick and tired of the rhetoric. I'm sick and tired of the brainwashing. I'm sick and tired of the lies from the Democrat media. There shouldn't even be that there's a Democrat media and then there's a few Republican media. That's so stupid. So it shows you right there, they're not going to be fair. They're not going to be honest. And so I'm so sick and tired of that. But I'm also sick and tired of the murder from the Democrat Party. And I said, yeah, let's get this off our chest. Let's do it. So I told him yes. He didn't even have the name of the title yet. Usually when my first author came to me, when I wrote for my Cold Dead Fingers, I actually had a co-author then. That's the only time I've had a co-author. And he says, I said, Tim, when he asked me to write it with him, he said, it's about gun control. I want you to write the foreword. And then he told me the name, and he said, it's From My Cold Dead Fingers, Why America Needs Guns. And I go, Tim, I'm not a hunter. I've never owned a gun until I was elected sheriff. Before that, I was a cop, but it was a department issued gun. And I had to give it back when I left and when I ran for sheriff. And so I said, Tim, you know I'm not that much into guns. When it comes to talking about guns, you're going to have to do that part. He says, well, we're not going to talk about guns and caliber and all that too much. We're going to talk about gun control and the dangers of gun control. I said, okay, great. But he had the title of the book. This guy had nothing except, well, let's have an impact on the 26 elections. So my IT guy and my editor, Kelly Van Shar, he's helped me do all my books, all of them. And he's very creative. And so he and I are discussing, what are we going to call this? Because Dan actually came up with a title, and it was so innocuous. It didn't say much. It was too calm. It wasn't in your face at all. And so I said, Dan, let me work on the title with Kelly, and we'll get back to you. He said, okay. He says, you're being way too milquetoast. I said, we don't need any more milquetoast. We got enough of that already. And so I was talking to Kelly about it. I go, Kelly, we got to just come up with something where the Democrats are killing America, you know. And he goes, well, that's it. I go, what's it? He goes, the Democrat murder of America. I go, why didn't I think of that? I guess I did kind of. And so, and then he came up with the demagoguery in the first degree. And then I said, what on earth are we going to do for a cover? And I told him, I said, somehow we got to show a Democrat killing America, murdering America. He had it ready for me in 5 minutes. And I love it. I mean, it's so perfect. The jackass on the front cover right here, the jackass with a patriotic hat. So, you know, the facade of patriotism, we're doing this because it's for our own good, what the Democrats always say and what politicians always say. And then while he's supposedly smiling and celebrating the 4th of July, he's got a big old knife in his hoof, stabbing the Statue of Liberty in the back, stabbing America in the back, stabbing the American dream in the back, killing the American dream. And why did we want to go so bold? And why did we want such a bold and offensive title and cover? And it's obvious, Blaze, you know me well enough to know that we wanted to get everybody's attention, especially the Democrats. Democrats, we want you to look at the cover. And if you are offended, that's great. But we also ask that you do one thing. Find out what's in the book. Don't just complain. We want you to be humble enough to say, I want to know what that book is saying about the party I belong to. And we also want the Republicans to say the same thing. We want every American to say the exact same thing. Oh my gosh. Mike Lindell is calling me back right now.
Do we need to do a quick pause?
I'm not going to take it.
Okay.
I'm not going to. Unless you guys have something you want to say real quick. But I just called him about the book before the show. It was about a half hour before the show. And so I guess he's interested. I'll call him back. He's a great guy. You know, he's leading right now in the polls in Minnesota to become the governor.
Well, I did not know that, but I'm glad to hear.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're praying that he makes it. He's now there's another guy that's dedicated himself to the cause of liberty. And boy, has he ever gone through the hate and the ire of the Democrats, you know. But Blaze and Bree, I want to ask both of you. Don't you believe there's still, and you have family and friends just like I do, who are registered Democrats? Do you believe that there's enough of them that are honest in heart that would really look at this, and that you could talk into saying, look, the author of this book is a friend of mine. We really want you to take a couple of hours and read this book. And then tell me afterwards. Tell me what's wrong with it. Tell me where there's a lie. I don't want to sound like Charlie Kirk. I'm not a Charlie Kirk. I loved him and I thought he was a good man. But I think I met him once at one of his festivals, but it was just in passing, just shake a hand. Didn't get even to tell him who I was. But prove me wrong. Prove me and Dan wrong. Tell me where we lied. We'll take it out. And even the price of the book, we hope offends some people. Like if you go to our website, murderofamerica.com, all one word, murderofamerica.com. If you go to that website, you can order the ebook for only $14.92. $14.92. Yes, we love Columbus. Columbus did a great thing for America and for the world. And the Democrats trying to rewrite that and make him out to be a racist and all this. You want to know who was a racist? FDR was a racist. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the president of the United States, and Jesse Owens was the greatest athlete in the world, and he invited the Olympic team, except the black guys, to come to the White House. Jesse Owens was not allowed to go to the White House because of FDR. And yet, they never cuss FDR, but they sure do Columbus. And no, we don't want any more of that. And so they cuss our Constitution, they cuss the Founding Fathers. But do you guys, back to my question, what do you guys think? Do you know some Democrats that you would like to see read this book, and do you think they would?
Well, if I can jump in, Dad, I think, I probably speak for both of us when I say that we don't necessarily agree that it's driven only by Democrats. But I do very much believe that Democrats, or maybe more aptly liberals in general, have done the best job of speeding this murder up and ensuring that this death from within comes to pass, especially because of their commandeering of American media and the American education system. So I certainly agree with that. And I think that, and I know that you do make the point in the book that there are politicians on both sides very much that are guilty of the things that you're accusing people of here. And what I think is important is actually early on in the preface of the book, it's kind of similar to what you just said, using the price of $14.92. You kind of make the points by poking at the verbiage of different races and ethnicities and political parties and so on. And it really depicts the silliness of the forced ideologies of all of these things that have been pushed on the American people by the Democratic Party. So it's hard to know, because going back to answering your question, it's hard to know if people who identify as a Democrat would be willing to read this book, because people have been pushed so far to either corner. I think it's important for people on both sides of the political parties to read the book, because it really is meant for all of us, because there are people on both sides who are guilty of these things. And I do think that, as I said, both parties are guilty, but I do believe that the Democratic Party has had a very big role in the mind games that have kind of been the catalyst for this so-called murder. Dad?
Yeah, Sheriff, what I would suggest is I think the 80-20 rule applies in almost all cases, and I think there's probably somewhere close to 20% of Democrats that would give it the time of day. And then I think there's probably 80%, or 4 out of 5, that simply are so committed, and their understanding of the world around them is so elemental, so skin deep, they look no further than the agenda that they get spoon-fed. They don't stand up for core values that they may have instilled in them from the beginning. But if the agenda is going this way and the mob is going this way, I think 80% of them are going to. So my roundabout way of answering that question is I think you can almost slice 20% out of any demographic and have them a little bit different than the rest of the population. So I think agreeing with Bree, there's a lot of problems on both sides of the aisle. I think the Democrats have certainly shown and displayed through their actions a much more focused intent to ruin this country. And I think 80% of them will be hard to get up from in front of the television set where they get most of their news and information. And there's probably 20% that are open-minded enough. You know, they used to have the thing called the Blue Dog Democrats that were really what would be considered a conservative today. I think there's still some of those people out there that would entertain anything that truly feeds their knowledge base.
Well, all right, good. And I agree with I agree totally both of you. I'm just still hoping that the cover and the title will even get the staunch polarized Democrats to say, okay, what the hell is this book saying? I want to see what this is, and I'm going to write an article about it, or I'm going to dispute it, and I'm going to show that these two authors are such liars and don't know what they're talking about. We want that to happen. We definitely want that to happen. I want to get back on CNN and talk about this because we have a picture in here of Sarah Sidner from CNN interviewing me in my daughter's house just down the street here about a mile and a half. Because the office I had in my home at that time was too small. The office I have right now in my new home, which we got 3 years ago, but we live in the same neighborhood. We just got a different home is all. And it's too small. So we went over to my daughter's house we got in her living room and we did the interview. Sarah Sidner, one of the best liars from CNN, I have a picture of her interviewing me there, and I really assail her big time, and CNN, and other people who've interviewed me. The Arizona State University, a university that I grew up loving and been there hundreds of times, had their Walter Cronkite School of Journalists. I told them I would not interview. They asked me for an interview. I said, you can't. I'm not going to interview with you. You can't put me through that until you see the presentation, Blaze, that you've seen several times, the presentation that I do to law enforcement and sheriffs nationwide. And they sat there for 2 hours. I rented a room at the Doubletree. I rented a conference room, and there were like 5 or 6 postgraduate students doing the article. Then they had a cameraman, an audio man, and 3 professors, Mark Greenblatt being the leader of that. And in the book, I call him straight to his, as much as you can in a book, straight to his face, you, sir, are a liar. And you're training your students to lie. Your journalism is based on a lie. And so they lied about us. Rick Dalton went with me to the presentation. I had Kelly Van Shar there, and he filmed the whole thing. In their story about us, they never mentioned one thing from the training session. They were there over 2 hours, a little over 2 hours, and they wrote the story exactly like they wanted to before they even walked in the room. Mm-hmm. They never mentioned once anything that we did in our presentation. And so I never thought they could be that dishonest, and that's why I asked them to come and listen to the program first and the presentation. But both of you reminded me of something when we were talking before. And so this part of the book, I want to read about a paragraph.
Perfect.
And first of all, I agree with you. There's problems on both sides of the aisle, but some of the worst things that have happened recently, like January 6th, completely contrived and fabricated by the Democrats and the Democrat administration. What they said about January 6th and arresting the 900 people for what they did, for simple trespass, most of them. I admit some of them did some real stupid things and maybe committed some criminal mischief, and destroyed some property. which those people should have paid a fine and maybe got a year in jail. That would have been about 5 people. But Dr. Gold going inside the U.S. Capitol and giving a speech, and people were running around, going by her. There was a police officer standing next to her while she gave her speech. It was kind of weird and maybe kind of funny, but she gave her speech. Is there any criminal intent in doing that? No. So anyway, there were so many underhanded things about the FBI having provocateurs there and undercover people there. And how do we know that the FBI actually wasn't the ones that committed the worst crimes there?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And there were no murders and there were no deaths on the police side on January 6th. But 2 people were murdered on the other side.
That's correct.
Actually, Babbitt should have never been shot. And the courts and everyone exonerated the man, and he was actually promoted for doing what he did. And he never once said what Ashley Babbitt did that showed that was a legitimate reason to be scared for your life. He feared for his life, he said, so he shot her. What did she do? Articulate what she did to show some sort of threat towards you. He never was required to do that. He just said he did. But he knew, Blaze, you know as well as I do, he knew he had to say that or he committed a murder. And so he had to say it, and he did. And of course, the Democrats sided with all of that and put Stuart Rhodes in prison for 18 years and some other people. Stuart Rhodes was not even there.
Correct.
And this is how ridiculous it got. And not once, of all the people that they rounded up across the country, not once did they extradite any of them. And yet they were in various jurisdictions all over the country. They did not follow the rules. They contrived these courts, found them guilty, had woke judges, woke prosecutors, and this was an absolute outrage. And then they had a January 6th hearing against President Trump, and every single person on the panel to investigate January 6th crimes, every single one of them were an enemy to President Trump. Talk about Jim Crow laws and talk about Jim Crow setups. The Democrats were proud to do it. And yes, there was 2 Republicans on there too. We know Republican Party has been infiltrated by Democrats and rhinos. And I can't stand rhinos worse than Democrats. I think that we can work with Democrats, and I still believe that. But I want every Democrat to hear me what I'm saying right now.
Okay.
Okay, this is page 102. Socialism is legalized plunder. And you both know that. Socialism is legalized plunder. Government can take whatever they want from the rich and give it to the poor. And we're going to have a society, a utopian society of equality. Forced government equality has never been equality. It's tyranny. It's government ruthlessness, and it always ends up in massive deaths and kill squads and horrible governments that we could go name through history very easily. But let's see what Sheriff Mack and Dan Perkins say about socialism and communism. Freedom and free markets are what made America the greatest nation in history. It was not socialism that made America. It was not communism that built the American dream. It was freedom. Socialism and communism are the antithesis of American idealism. And then over on the next page, and Blaze, I think you remember this person. I don't know if Bree would. The name Nikita Khrushchev.
Mm-hmm.
You know where that comes from, right, Blaze?
Sure. Yep.
How about you, Bree? You're probably too young.
I remember the name, but I don't remember where I know it from.
Okay. Nikita Khrushchev was the dictator of the Soviet Union before they split up and went back to different countries. Yugoslavia became Yugoslavia and Poland became Poland, all that. Okay, so he was mean, He was fat. He was angry. He was scary. Look, I was just a kid when he was in there. I mean, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And whenever he was on TV or whenever my parents were talking about him, it scared me to death. Well, this is what this man, what was his position? He wasn't president. He wasn't prime minister. He was the head guy. He was the number one head dictator. And his official title was General Secretary for the Soviet Union Communist Party. That's what this man was. And this is what he promised America and Americans. You Americans are so gullible. No, you won't accept communism, but we'll feed you small doses of socialism until you finally wake up and find you already have communism. We don't have to invade the United States. We will destroy you from within. Whether you like it or not, history is on our side. We will bury you. Well, you see, this is the comparison I make here, or we make here. I can't say we wrote this book together.
Mm-hmm.
The comparison is that the Democrat Party is serving up exactly what Nikita Khrushchev said would happen. The Democrat Party is fulfilling this promise from Nikita Khrushchev, one of the worst dictators in world history. And sure enough, we're doing it. Democrats, I want you to prove me wrong. Prove Dan Perkins and Sheriff Mack wrong. Tell us you're not doing that. It's easy to see that you are.
Right.
There's socialism and communism all over your party. You're electing communists everywhere across the country. And George Soros has paid to have many prosecutors, district attorneys, and county attorneys all across the country who are communists. And we could point out many of those. Ellison in Minnesota is definitely one of those. I don't know if he was funded by Soros, but I know he's a communist. And I know he changed his name to be able to run so people would be against his Muslim name. And so folks, we have this happening, and you can thank the Democrat Party. You can absolutely thank the Democrat. Today, we don't need communist dictators attacking us. We have liberals working around the clock to erode our values until we become weak and blind. Socialism is not based on kindness or generosity. It is based on the point of a gun from government. So did I prick any interest there between either of you?
Well, I'm just going to jump in for a second, and I think Bree touched on it right to her comments prior to you reading that paragraph. And that is, I think there has been such an influence and indoctrination from our education system that the kids today are brought up believing they're cheering for this stuff. So, the younger people really provide a lot of energy to which way the country's going to go. And there have been a lot of them that have been thoroughly indoctrinated, believing that this is the way to go. So that's where my whole point goes with there being a smaller percentage of them that are actually open-minded enough to consider something different, because many of them do not recognize the threats that come along with communism. They haven't been taught that. They have not had it. It's been washed from the history books. So they are brought up believing that this is a better way to go for them to raise their family. They don't understand the risks that are going along with it, in my estimation.
I think you're right. That's why we're depending on people like you to pass this book around. You've got to get it to me. These staunch Democrats that I know, I think they know enough of us that they would still say, well, Uncle Sheriff, yes, I'll read that book if you ask me to. Maybe I'll do a book report for it for school. They'll probably get punished or what, but the thing of it is, no one can ignore the epilogue where a state senator from California, a staunch progressive Democrat, and this is why we make it the epilogue, because it's the final request and reach for us to join hand in hand with our Democrat brothers and sisters and our Rhino brothers and sisters and anyone who has the humility, and there's such strength in humility, just to try, take the challenge, spend a few hours and read this, but start with the epilogue so you see where we want all of this to go. Because that Democrat criticized her own party vehemently. And this was 2 years ago. And she goes, I am a proud member of the Democrat Party. I'm a proud progressive. But what this party has been doing to support pedophiles, buying and selling children, and that we're now supposed to be protecting those criminals instead of our children. I'm done. I'm quitting. I'm not doing this anymore. And she actually joined with a Republican, and they passed some legislation that went against the normal party politics of the Democrats and did something to protect our children. I want all of you to read that. And every American should be proud to read that, and then maybe get a little curious and look through the other 34 chapters or so and say, you know what? I want to know what Martin Luther King said, who the greatest purveyor of violence in the world was. That's chapter 8. And lo and behold, you'll start discovering things and learning things that might have an impact on your life and on the American dream and on America's survival. Because right now, you both know, America, she's on her deathbed. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take some real serious CPR, constitutional principled resuscitation. We've got to get back to our Constitution, and the American people have got to get back to the basics and to our foundation, or America is dead. And yes, we are murdering America, and we all have to take some responsibility for that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we certainly agree with that part of it. You know, our lack of effort and education surrounding all of this is how we're all contributing. Maybe, you know, the people listening to this are not a politician in the Democratic Party, but it's still your fault if you're not doing something to fix the problem.
But they need to hand that politician a book.
Sure.
And just say, here, read 3 chapters in this, read the epilogue, and then pick 3 other chapters.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anybody could put it down, even the most staunch, dishonest politician. You know, I know some will. Yeah, I know them well as you do. Even some of those from Pennsylvania. But look at the miracle that has happened already with a couple of Democrats. Your senator, John Fetterman, did you ever think that he would be the voice of reason in the Democrat Party?
Never. No.
No, me either.
But
and how about Bill Maher, same thing. Bill Maher, I never thought he'd be the voice of reason.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things I think is a big hurdle that we're all trying to deal with is the power that the party has over the individuals within the party. And by that, I mean, like you have an individual mentioned in the book that stood out against calling out her party. But there are not many of them that do it. And those that do usually end up like Tom Massey did, or maybe Margie Taylor Greene, and they leave because they're a voice in the wilderness. And the party coalesces around, it appears to me like both sides do. They coalesce around the collective reasoning instead of the individual principles that they all should have, where they focus on the next election and not the next generation. Speaking
all right,
of
well,
definition
let's do something there. See if Tom Massey will read the book. See if Marjorie Taylor Greene will read the book. I actually met her at a big rally for Mike Lindell, you know, so yeah. Let's see if we can get, you know, we really believe in some of these staunch Republicans like Rand Paul. I had problems with Tom Massey. I had problems with Rand Paul. I had problems with Ron Paul. And yeah. I thought you guys were the stalwarts here. And yet and it's not about this book. This was years ago when an Amish farmer, you remember Sam Gerard getting 6 years in prison?
Oh, down in Kentucky, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bath County, Kentucky. And he
Yep.
spent 4.5 years in prison.
Yep.
Did his senator do anything for him, Rand Paul, to get him out, to stop this? Do you know that there was one organization that tried to get these people, to get Rand and Ron and Tom Massey to do something? And I was in Rand Paul's office in Washington, D.C. several times, working with him. Nothing. Tom Massey, nothing. Ron Paul, nothing. And an innocent man went to prison. So what I'm saying is, I would still vote for any of the three for president of the United States. I would. But I know that sometimes good people make bad mistakes. And I can live with that as long as they just don't keep making them over and over, you know. And I think Rand Paul's a good man. And every time he opens his mouth about the economy and blaming Republicans and Democrats, he's absolutely correct.
Sure.
But why he just stopped doing something. So I still want to appeal. And I want this book to appeal to everyone. And I don't care if they know me or like me or don't like me. And you go, oh, Sheriff Mack, well, heck, the Southern Poverty Law Center said he's a racist. And the SPLC said he's a white supremacist. And the ADL said he's anti-Semitic. And that could go on and on and on. And I could name a lot more. Oh, the Washington Post said Mack's crazy and a radical and paramilitary and pro-violence. And the Southern Poverty Law Center actually put me on their intel report and put me and Judge Napolitano and Ron Paul on their top 40 domestic terrorists in America. And yeah, I know, it's a joke. It is funny. I'm glad you laughed. Because I've never committed, in 20 years of law enforcement, I never committed an act of violence. And here I am, I'm a domestic terrorist. Ask the ADL and SPLC. And I've tried to get Jim Jordan and other officials in Washington, D.C. to put me on the list for being a witness. They went after me over 32 years. They lied about me for 32 years. And then, and so now I can't get anybody from Washington, D.C. to give me a call. Put me on the witness list. I want to testify against them. That would be the best therapeutic testimony I could ever give, because they have really put stuff out there about me that just is absolutely such a lie, and they know it. Mm-hmm. And so, and I need to write another book because I haven't even assailed the SPLC in here. You know?
Well, I think that's another great point that kind of has a theme to pretty much what we talked about that night. And I think they recognize, they being the establishment and the media and all the pieces that they use, if they repeat the lie long enough, people simply buy into it. And then it's very hard. It's very, very hard to convince people that they've been duped. Just like Mark Twain said, it's a heck of a lot easier to fool the people than convince them that they've been fooled. And I think this is the thing we're all challenged with. They have been lied to for so long that we have a hard time getting them off of the lie.
Right.
Well, speaking of all of these things, I think these conversations lead very nicely into something I wanted to make a point of. And I know we're running short on time, so I think you'll have hopefully a somewhat quick answer to this one. But one of the quotes that you make in the book uses one of the Democrats' favorite taglines, which is "Save our democracy." We have to save our democracy. And you make the point that it should be "Save us from democracy." So going back to that lie and that idea of, you know, bridging the gap between these different politicians on either side, this is something that should be important to anyone, regardless of where they stand, liberal, conservative, anywhere in between. That is a message that's being missed by everyone. Democracy is not something we should be championing, but rather running from. So hopefully you can just, and we've talked about it a little bit on this show, but I'd love to hear from your perspective before we wrap this up. Why is that true? Why is that the case?
Well, you just have to quote the founding fathers from that and you'll get all the answers you need. Benjamin Franklin, a republic if you can keep it. And the D word is not mentioned anywhere in any of our foundational documents. But Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution, the United States shall guarantee to each state in this union a republican form of government. And then Ben Franklin also said, a democracy is defined by 3 wolves and a lamb voting what's for dinner. And then they add, lots of founding fathers said democracy is mobocracy. And in our constitutional republic, it's quite the opposite. We protect the rights of the individual. One person, Rosa Parks, refusing to give her seat to a white man. One person out of the entire community, even the blacks didn't want her to do it. Her husband was so mad at her for doing it. She didn't do it just one time. She did it several times. She finally got arrested. And where's the white leaders? And where's the white sheriff? And where's the white cops who refused to arrest her? They should have done that. And that's what we talk about in the book. And that's what we talk about. That's what I've dedicated my life to, is that we don't do that. And the NAACP doesn't protect civil rights anymore. They're a branch of the Democrat Party. And that's how far we've gone amiss. And we've got to turn it around. I don't know if this book will work. I pray that it does, but I have felt so inspired by so many parts of it. And I'm glad you brought that part up, Bree. I'm glad you saw that part, because that's a huge part. And Charles Barkley actually answered that question to his mother. He quit the Democrat Party because he got tired of the lies and the empty promises. And she called him, Charles, why are you a Republican? The Republicans only care about rich people. And he goes, Mom, I'm rich. I'm very rich. And so he had to deprogram her. Well, that's what this book is. Folks, listen to Charles Barkley. He's black. He used to be, and both of us, all 3 of us know that the 2-party system is something and we put this in here as well, what Washington has sailed in his farewell address. His farewell address is in here, and it's actually translated a little bit so everybody will understand it. And so I really am glad, Bree, that you brought that up, because folks, if we could just listen to one little thing from Charles Barkley and realize that maybe the rest of us need to go somewhere else. I'm not telling anybody to change parties. I would love to see a national referendum where we didn't have parties at all, because they're part of the problem. And Washington was correct about that. But we've got to see that there's an absolute necessity. It's vital to our survival that we come together as brothers and sisters and fellow Americans and change what's going on.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Can't say it better than that.
Hey,
so
if you have
does everybody need to know where to get the book?
Oh,
sure. Yeah, we need you to.
Is that what you were about to add, Dad?
Yeah.
Well, I know we always finish up
folks,
with giving the guest an opportunity to promote wherever they may be found and whatever products they may have out there. I wanted to offer just a couple of real quick points. Number one, don't you just want to pull your hair out when you hear Republicans calling us a democracy, which you do all the time? The Republicans themselves call us a democracy.
Oh,
which is
I forgot to tell you that, Blaze. The book talks about that. Fox News is one of the worst ones ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I talk about it. I spent some real time on Fox News.
Yeah. Good. Other 2 quick points I wanted to make. 2 quick comments on J6. I think the whole thing was scripted. It was theater, including, quite probably, the cop shooting Ashley Babbitt. I think that was all planned out.
Probably. It looks that way. It looks horrible. The whole situation looks horrible. And
we lost him.
Yeah, we lost him altogether. But that's that hotel Wi-Fi for you.
Yeah, and it happened the last time you were on. So I don't know. Something about you joining. But yeah,
Thanks
please.
for having me on. I congratulate you for your upcoming nuptials. And I would really like to do this with one of my kids, but I did it with my wife. There was actually a station that interviewed me and my wife about 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
And
nice.
they were right next together. It was really fun. She's fantastic. She's so
Oh,
beautiful.
that's awesome.
And so, but folks, I believe that this book could really make a difference. It's in your hands. Put the book in your hands and read it. And the solution for America is in your hands. Let's do something about it. Let's do something different. We can't keep doing the same old things over and over and expect something different.
Yeah.
And so, folks, I ask you to take my hand. And I don't care what race you are, and I don't care what religion you are, or even if you're not a religion. I want to join hand in hand with fellow Americans and save our country. For who? For you, and for me, and for my grandchildren, and for my children, and for all of you. We have got to see what's going on, and we've got to do something about it. You can start by going to murderofamerica.com. If you want to see my stuff at cspoa.org, okay, cspoa.org. You can see this book there as well and join the CSPOA. But folks, my number one calling right now, my number one focus is this book, The Democrat Murder of America, Demagoguery in the First Degree. And so I ask each of you to be a part of this movement to save our country. I'm willing to come and talk to Democrat organizations, Democrat media. Fox News won't even have me anymore. I don't care. That's their problem. I want to talk to all of you. I want to go to an NAACP meeting. I want to go any place. Blacks for Trump. I don't care. I want to talk to Hispanics, Latin Americans. Yo hablo español. Todos ustedes son mis hermanos. Okay? I want to be with everybody. I want to be with my fellow Americans. And I want to ask you to be curious enough about this crazy title and this crazy cover and read the book. Challenge me on it. Call me about it. Invite me to come speak at your event. I'll do it. Murderofamerica.com. All one word, murderofamerica.com. Let's save America.
Awesome. Sheriff Richard Mack, it's always a pleasure. You always bring a great and important message. Sounds like they can buy the book directly off of that website as well then. Is that right? Okay.
That's right.
Perfect. Yep. So we'll go ahead and link that in the show notes so everybody has easy access to it. Thanks for all the information and sharing so much of what's inside the book. But of course, there's so much more packed in there. So hopefully those of you listening will go ahead and check it out and see, because there's plenty of things that we did not get into tonight. It would take many, many hours. So yeah.
Your dad wrote a note.
He's texting, oh, emergency. Yep. He fell off the podcast.
Thank you so much for the time.
Yep. Well, we lost him the last time you were on too. I'm not sure what it is about having you on. But hey, maybe next time we'll have all three of us the whole time through. And, maybe we can all do a group session with your wife one of these times that you join us as well.
That would be fun.
For sure. Well, thank you again, Sheriff Richard Mack. You may remember we usually close with a Bible verse. I would love to have you join while I go ahead and read that quickly, and then we can wrap it up. All right, so tonight's verse, which was picked by my dad, unfortunately he's not here to read it, is from Isaiah 1:17. Learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, plead the widow's cause. So, Sheriff, we are always thankful for the work that you've done for all of America and for liberty. So, thank you again.
See you soon, Bree. Thanks so much for having me.
Good night. Alrighty, everybody. So, as I mentioned, we have lost Pops once again at the end of this podcast. This has happened to us before. It just happened with one of our last guests, Jacob Johnson, you may recall. Tonight, we can blame the fact that he was recording from a hotel, and Wi-Fi can be quite spotty in those situations. So all that said, as I mentioned, I will go ahead and post the information that Sheriff Richard Mack shared with us in the show notes so you can find his book if you're interested. He's written several books, so if you're interested in any others, go to the cspoa.org website to check those out. And I'll go ahead and link that last episode that we had with him as well, so that you can get a little bit more of his backstory and everything that he went through in the Mack and Prince versus US case. Please remember that if this episode or any of our episodes or any of our messaging at all speaks to you in any capacity, to go ahead and subscribe wherever you listen to this: Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the works. We're on all of the things. Subscribe, give us a like, give us a rating, leave a review, share the podcast. It really helps us, and it's really beneficial to get these messages into the ears of someone who will take value from them but may not find them on their own. So you have a role to play. Everything that all of us do, big or small, helps. It is important, and all of us have a role to play in saving this country and saving liberty. We will be back next week on Thursday at 6 p.m. Until then, stay vigilant.
Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate the support and truly love getting to share this message with anyone who wants or needs it. The best way for you to support the show is to subscribe, add a rating, and share with everyone you know. You can find us on Instagram, X, and at thefourthbox.com. We'll see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Stay vigilant.